Good afternoon, my name is Oleksandr, and it's my pleasure to see everybody joining us at Ukraine Media Center Ukraine Forum. It's year 10 of the war, and today is day 593 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And now we will be talking about the situation in Kherson region. Joining us online is Oleksandr Tolokonnikov, spokesperson of the Kherson Regional Military Administration. Mr. Oleksandr, good afternoon. Good afternoon, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Mr. Oleksandr, recently we found out about the shelling of Kherson. We found out about a large number of people who were staying in the temple. What is the situation over there? Yes, really, within the last day, 19 people have become casualties of the shelling. Unfortunately, there was a death of one man in Antonivka. His body was found. He was found dead. He died because of the shrapnel injury. Yesterday, the Russians started shelling maybe from 1 o'clock in the night. Suvorov district got under the shelling, and the areas nearby, 7 persons were injured. The medics provided all the necessary medical aid to them right on spot. Also ending up under the shelling was a number of residential buildings where a family from the East Bank was living, who moved from the left bank, and they were awaiting for the liberation. A woman of 27 years and a girl of 9 months old. They ended up under shelling. Thankfully, they are okay. They are back home. The Russians continued the shelling from the very morning. At 4 o'clock in the morning, they injured 4 people. A family of 4 ended up under shelling and got injured. They got injuries of medium level. Also, the Russians shelled the town of Berislav with aviation bombs. Yesterday and today, 1 man was injured. He got a shrapnel injury and was hospitalized. About 10 o'clock in the morning, they inflicted a shelling on Indika. A 12-year-old girl ended up under the shelling. She is in heavy condition in the hospital. The medics fight for her life. She got a head injury and a fracture of a shoulder bone. We're following closely her condition. 4 more people were injured. On top of that, the Russians were shelling the city of Kherson in the evening. About 30 projectiles were launched on Kherson from different types of weapons, cannon, artillery, MLRS, and mortars. Also, the Russians used the aviation bombs. They dropped 4 aviation bombs on Berislav, and now we identified the level of damage and destruction. Mr. Oleksandr, from what you're saying, is it safe to say that the Russians made Kherson end up under very dense fire along with the rest of the region? Yes, and the most horrible part of it is that is the civil infrastructure where there is no military. They continue fighting the children, the civilians. They only inflict attacks and on those districts where regular Khersonians live. They continue shelling those districts with Grad MLRS, and it covers the area in squares, and obviously there is no any fight against any military in those regions. They're only shelling, they're only destroying the civilian districts. Many vehicles were burned yesterday as well, so we cannot talk about any war. We're talking here about the destruction of civil infrastructure and civil population. Mr. Oleksandr, given the terror of the civil population, don't you start discussing any solutions such as evacuation of people? Well, we mentioned evacuation a number of times. People keep leaving. Obviously, after such strikes, the number of people being evacuated increases. We're not talking about mandatory evacuation or forced evacuation. For us, Now it's the main thing to evacuate the kids. During our Security and Defense Council meeting, we've taken a decision on evacuation of such children. More than 300 of them were evacuated along with their families. About 1,200 more still remain in the area. Well, talking about the critical infrastructure, what is its condition? What is the situation with water, power, and heat supply? A couple of words about that, if I may. Well, thanks God, we continue covering those holes that the Russians do with their shellings. So after every shelling of critical infrastructure, our utility technicians go out on missions to put those, so to say, patches. About 70% of the critical infrastructure is ready for the heating season. We have about 1 month more to prepare it up to 100%. Also, there is a civil defense. They continue working on protection of civil infrastructure, working very actively to make sure that the damage is minimized in case of a strike. But we understand that if the shelling is intense and it's aimed at the civil infrastructure, so it's a whole different thing, because obviously if we have water, gas, and light, water supply and heating, well, you can live here more or less. But again, given the strikes, if the one of the utility services is absent, then it's a big question whether it's still comfortable to remain here. According to your estimate, what is the number of people remaining in the city of Kherson and the region? It's about 72,000 in the city of Kherson and about 173,000 more in the region. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. Dear colleagues, if we have questions on the floor, please introduce yourself. Good afternoon, Olga Panasenko, Ukrinform. Mr. Oleksandr, do you have any figures? How many street shelters are installed in the West Bank, and how much of them are fit for taking cover? So talking about the shelters, about 150 mobile shelters are installed in the West Bank, which protect the civil population from such an instant strike from the East Bank. When people have 5 to 7 seconds to take shelter, they are installed in the bus stops, public transport stops, and for what I remember, 120 of them are located in the city of Kherson. 4 more are installed in Belozerka, some more are installed in Berislav, and we plan to install more of them. So talking about the bomb shelters, the capital structures that are under, and some of them under repair, for what I remember, 70 something shelters are ready to receive the population, to receive the civilians. I'll double check this figure because it keeps changing, because the new shelters are being repaired, and also there are shelters, the bomb shelters, that are not used currently. Not used as they're supposed to be, because there are no people living nearby. So the civilians use more mobile shelters, and those capital bomb shelters are out of use because there are no intense missile strikes, thankfully. But people understand that they should be careful about the air raid signals, because there are aviation bombs incoming on the city of Kherson and Antonivka, so you should be careful and proceed to the shelter immediately. Mr. Oleksandr, talking about the other bank of Kherson region, which is currently under temporary occupation, what do we know about our people over there? What is the situation in general? Well, in general, the situation is such that I've heard the information recently that the prosecutor's office and the courts started operating. They brought Russian judges and prosecutors, and the first words that they come up with is to deprive people of their agricultural businesses and lands from those businessmen who got not not registered according to the Russian legislation, so it's the most necessary thing for them. About other things, they continue the forced passportization. They have moved the date until which the people can re-register their vehicles for Russian number plates. It used to be 1st of January, but now they say that if you don't re-register until the 1st of November, they will seize the vehicles. They stop the people at the checkposts. They give them some papers. They come to the relevant offices, and if they want to get their vehicle re-registered, first they are supposed to get their Russian passports. And yesterday we got the information that in Antonivka, in the East Bank Antonivka, there are reports of local school and kindergarten being re-outfitted as a hospital for Russian military. No matter what they say that they will start teaching the children, there are still very little teachers who are ready to work there. They were trying to bring the Russian teachers, but they were coming, looking around, and they were leaving after a month. Nobody wants to work in conditions like that. And on top of that, they outfit the educational institutions as the military hospitals. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. Thank you for joining our broadcast. Dear colleagues, I'm reminding you joining us was Oleksandr Tolokonnikov, the spokesperson of Kherson Regional Military Administration. And right now our team is working on the schedule for tomorrow, so stay tuned, follow our announcements, and we continue working for the sake of our victory. Glory to Ukraine.